Prologue. Crystal watched the black casket being lowered into the ground. She held Serenity, her daughter, tight as the little girl cried for her daddy. Jonathan was gone. Part of Crystal's heart went with him into the cold ground. She would never love a man like that again. Never. When her daughter reached up and took her face, she smiled. Here was a different kind of love, a love she felt she could share with any and all, especially her own daughter. Unconditional. Unmasked. Pure. Raw. Forever. I know, baby. She rubbed her hand over Serenity's blonde hair. It had taken her almost half an hour that morning to get the flyaway mess into its barrettes. Now it was freed and flying every which way. I miss him too. She hugged the girl to her chest. Over her daughter's head, her eyes met Jonathan's mother. Martha Harrison came from one of the oldest families in America. Her powerful political reach was something Crystal knew she would have to deal with sooner or later. She had just hoped it would be later. Before Jonathan had left them, he had set in motion a plan for their daughter. Crystal hadn't agreed to it, but she would remain silent as instructed. Martha and Carl Harrison hadn't been pleased, but for the love of their son, they too would remain silent until the time came when Serenity would need her father's power. For now, Crystal would have her daughter all to herself. Thankfully, the Harrisons had wanted nothing to do with their bastard granddaughter. Let's go home, baby. Crystal stood up and carried her daughter to the old car her grandfather had given her years ago. Mommy, are we going to live with Granny and Papa now? Yes, baby. She smiled down at her daughter. What about Haven? The little girl had only known one home her entire life, the massive executive suite at the ritzy East Haven Resort, which Jonathan had owned and run. It was where they had met, fallen in love, and had their daughter. Jonathan had gotten sick shortly after Serenity had been born. Crystal had overseen the conversion of their rooms into a hospital ward until he had passed peacefully in her arms less than 3 nights ago. But because of the arrangement with the Harrisons, she and Serenity were moving back into her parents' place on the mainland in Silver Cove. Not that it was a downgrade. Her parents' home was the largest private home within 100 miles. Her parents were giving her and her daughter the entire 3rd floor, and they had spent a great deal of time and money in the past 2 days getting everything ready for their return home. When they parked in front of the massive place, she noticed that it was already decked out in Christmas lights and decorations. It was less than a week until the holiday, and Crystal knew it was going to be the hardest one in her and Serenity's lives. Come on, baby. Crystal lifted her daughter's sleeping body from her car seat. Over the past few years, they had visited her parents on plenty of occasions. Her mother had babysat Serenity often when Jonathan was too ill to have an active 6-year-old running around. As she carried her sleepy daughter up the front stairs, the glass door opened and she walked into her mother's waiting arms. I'm so sorry, baby, her mother said as she cried on her shoulder. You're home now. We'll take it one day at a time. You have your daughter to think about, and we'll make this Christmas the most special one she'll ever remember.